Okay folks, welcome back. This is your old pal Hondo doing another video for you on another Zebco reel from the 1970s. We're also going to show you a buyer's guide on one of these reels, what you should be looking for if you're hunting one of these older reels to use or just have it as a display for a collector. I'm going to use this one fishing on, just on my regular fishing. It's on a mid 1970s reel, I think. Probably like late 70s, early 70s. I'm not too sure, but I'll show you how you can date them. I will go through a Zebco catalog to look up this version's model and gear ratio and all that. But we're going to show you what you should look for when you're buying an old Zebco from the 1970s, early 80s kind of thing. This one's a 1970s, mid 1970s reel. Okay, folks, this is the reel that we're going to be cleaning today. The Zebco 33 from the late 1970s. How you can tell it's a 70s reel is it has a single rivet. If it has two rivets crisscross, that means it's a 1960s reel and 50s reel. They made this design of reel for almost 30 years until they changed it up to the basic brake system, one pickup pin and top brake system where you pushed it and it pushed the brake up in the 80s. This type of model was used for a long time in the 70s. In the 60s, you can tell this is a 70s model because of the writing. This was like the late 70s, probably like 1979, maybe into the 80s. Had a steel foot, drag knob here, 0 ball bearings, double handle crank, flat knobs, and it had a nice little anti-reverse switch, which was a bait runner, and it goes back, it breaks it, you push it forwards, and it interrupts that gear and goes back and forwards, and it has a bait clicker, so if a fish wanted to run with it, it's a really good example. The backstory on it was a guy who passed away. He was like 80 years old. Some guy's uncle owned it. He had this reel and another reel in the back of a wall, hidden behind a wall. Didn't use them much. They just sat and collected dust. But we're going to take it apart. We're going to clean it, show you how to clean it. All steel covers and graphite body. That's how you can tell it's like a late 70s. It has a graphite body. They started in 1970 making the graphite body reels, which are not bad, but anything from the 60s would have a all steel body reel, but the same design has been used for years, so it's a good reel. We're going to use it and we're going to disassemble it and show you how to clean it. First thing you want to do is take that base screw right there. You could either use a nickel. If this screwdriver doesn't work, we're going to loosen up this screw here. This is the cover screw. If that don't work, you can always use a nickel and a pair of pliers. It's a brass screw. And we're going to take that apart. Take the cover off by twisting it. And right here is the old school spinner head. And it has this like little irritating brake system in the middle, which we're going to have to re-glue. And I'll show you how to re-glue that in there with some rhino glue. We're going to have to let that sit overnight. But we're going to fix it and put it together anyways. Take it apart. You want to take this spinner head off. It's just like a traditional spinner head. You want to clean this out. Right here on top, it has this little screw that you have to have a small screwdriver for. Take a smaller screwdriver and you basically take that screwdriver, unscrew it. You don't gotta unscrew it all the way, you just want to get it to a point, and then you can push it out of the way like that. And if this is stuck, you can pull this right off. And this thing is dirty, it needs to be cleaned really bad. This one doesn't have a feather touch, I don't believe. Those were more expensive, the old feather touches. And you take the back plate off like so to pull and expose the gears. Yeah, this one don't have a feather touch, so I'm thinking this is like a late 70s, which is still a good reel. We'll take the handle crank off with a size 8 wrench right here. Also, it's got a nice little bait clicker here. It's still in good working order. And once you take that off, sometimes it takes a little coaxing. Right here's the back plate. Now you want to remove this to push that bar down, and you put your finger on it like that to remove the pinion gear bar, and then you do the same thing right there with it like that, and that should come right out for you, like right there. It has a little spring. We're gonna have to clean that too. Throw it in the. We'll throw this in the parts bowl to clean it, and we'll stick that in there too. It's plumb dirty, and we'll throw the handle in there. We don't really need to throw the nut in there. Now the only thing you need to remove from it at this point is the pinion gear. Should come out fairly easy. The pinion gear is right here at the very bottom. You can take a pair of pliers and just pull it out like so. Underneath it is a small little plastic washer. You have to be careful. Does it not want to come out, I wonder? Okay, it came out. There's this little plastic washer. I don't even clean that. I just wipe it off by hand. But you could take this and put it in the bath. Hit it with some 409. We'll take this out too. But since the rubber piece fell out, we're going to have to re-glue that. You use super glue, but I'm going to use a little bit of Gorilla Glue. But before you glue it, after you clean it, make sure you wipe it down with alcohol. And right here, we have the pinion gear. It should come out at this point right here. And there's a little sleeve in there that you could probably help push it out here. It should come out. I don't know if it'll just come out on its own. It might not. But what we're going to do is try to push down that bait clicker. I don't know. This may not want to come out. They usually come out fairly easy. We might need an extra tool here to help it on its way. Oh my God, this thing don't want to come out at all. Okay, we got it now. You have to push that stupid little bait clicker out of the way. It's always different for each one of these, and as you can see, this thing is clogged with grease. We're going to have a hell of a time trying to clean these parts. But we're going to clean the body too. We're going to shove it in the bowl with the other parts, and we're going to take it and put some 409 on it and spray it down and clean the parts, and we'll get back to you when we're done. Okay, we got everything wiped down and cleaned with a toothbrush and a metal wire brush. Now we're going to reassemble and grease this reel up again. A lot of parts here we're going to have to go through. Cover, helix wheel gear, pinion bar, and spring goes this away when you put it back together, and this goes right on top of the right here like so, and when you tighten it back up again and re-grease everything, it'll go back on there. This little circle piece goes on the center here, right through there in the reel when you put the pinion gear back in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to grease up some of these wheel gear parts and get to that attention first. I'll show you a way to do this. We're not going to put glue in it right yet, but what you do before you glue this, you take a little bit of rubbing alcohol, rub it around, and then use a little bit of Gorilla Glue, go around the spot here, and put this little rubber brake back in place with glue. If you don't, it's going to get tangled in between the spool. When you put the spool back in there like this, every time you cast, this line will get tangled in the spool like that if you don't glue it back down. We'll do that at a different time. But you can take super glue, would be more of a recommended thing to do to glue that rubber brake back in, but we're not going to do that right at this moment. We're just going to put it back together, and I'll do that at a later time. Show you. But you glue that in, and it'll last another 20 years. Okay, folks, we're going to put it back together. We're going to grease it up. We're going to be using some red and tacky grease from Lucas. This is a lithium grease. It's really thin and pasty. We're gonna coat the outside here, and we're gonna coat the wheel gear here, the back of the wheel gear where the shaft is, and the front of the helix gear system. Just take a little bit of grease and just, go in the front of the reel like that. Get it into the teeth. We used a toothbrush and a small wire brush to clean this, but you don't need a lot of grease. I see a lot of people when they clean these, they overly grease them. You don't need to. That's enough grease. And the pinion gear, we're going to grease that. Just the forward part of it and the back end of it right here. And we're going to grease that little piece right here. Work some of that grease in there like so, because you got to put a little bit of grease on that shaft right there so it goes in and it works properly. This is a zero ball bearing reel. These reels didn't come with ball bearings. We're gonna put this right here. We're gonna re-grease this here just on the spots. We already had grease coated our fingers. We're just gonna re-grease it very lightly. You don't need a lot of grease on this here bar. Put the spring back in the pinion gear bar and lay it off to the side. At this point, we can start reassembling the reel, but we can put a little bit of grease on this here too, on the back end of it. Just lightly coat it with some grease. That way when we put the reel back together, it doesn't cause a lot of friction. Put some on the front, or like right here as well. And on the spool, put that on the spool, and put some oil on it right here on the spinner head right there. Just put a little bit of grease in there. That's really all it takes. You just want to re-grease it, and put a little bit of oil, like a drop of oil on the pickup pin right here itself. Put some oil on that, and that's all you really need to do right there. And that greases and oils that. You want to grease on this oil. I really wouldn't put too much grease on this. Right here is the drag knob. So all we really need to do here is oil that. We're going to oil this right here and put a smidgen of grease on that. Just on the screw. You don't need a lot. Just put a little bit. This shit goes a long way, especially when you start, twisting it in there to work it in. You only need a little bit. You want to coat it lightly. And we'll put a little bit of grease right here on the anti-reverse switch, and the anti-reverse itself, and the anti-reverse mechanism, which is this little metal piece right here. It looks like a flat disc. That way it has some oil, so in case we washed it, it doesn't get rusted. We're going to oil here on the all over the frame. We even oiled the locking nut right here. And on the other side, we're going to re-grease this front part where the spool goes, and around the parts here. Put a little bit of oil down the hole here, and in the hole here as well. Although we greased it, we want to put a little bit of oil in there too. So that's all oiled and greased. Really, you only need to grease this drag knob, because that's really where a lot of the friction goes when you're using this reel. When you're setting the drag to minus to plus. Now we could, yeah, that seems to work pretty good. Bait alert switch is working okay. Now we're going to reassemble the wheel gear inside of it. This is really a pain in the butt to get in. You're going to have to move the anti-reverse switch out of the way. And it goes right in there. And we're going to replace the small little plastic washer on where the pinion gear goes. Okay, we got it in there. Now we're going to replace the pinion gear itself in that little small hole right there. Push it in there like so, and that wheel gear should go right in there as well, fairly easy. And once you do that, that's pretty much it. You get those gears in there like that. And now we'll have to replace the brake right here. This is called the brake, and then you could put the spool back on top right here. Get it in there. It should go in easy since we oiled the thing. Okay, there it goes. It's working now. We got that in place. Once you oil all this stuff, it'll be like a brand new reel. And we put this little washer back on top. We greased it as well. Got a little grease on it. Like I said, you didn't have to pull the screw out all the way. You just wanted to go over the reel itself like so. So it locks it into place like that. You just want it to go over slightly. Hold it like that. And tighten it up right here with a small screwdriver. And once you do that, it locks the spool into place. You don't want to make it too tight. There you go. And the little brake is also there too. That comes into play here, where we stick the little drag bar back in here. You got to push that down in there, make sure it goes down in there good. You want this drag washer to face away from the gear wheel itself. This little brake right here, you want it to face away from that gear wheel. You want it pointed up like that, and then you put the one side of the notch in there, and put that notch in there like so on one side. Oh man, we had it. See, that's the bad thing about doing this. These type of old reels are really hard to work on. You push this over here down, try to get it in here. See what I mean? We're gonna have to try to get it in the notch. There's a little hole there, and then you hold this side down. Sometimes it's easier to use a tool. You put a little pressure on it like that, and use a small screwdriver or something, and try to get that notch to pop back into place, and there you go. It's all back together again. Make sure you use your anti-reverse switch. There it goes. That's the anti-reverse switch. If you put oil on it, make sure you kind of massage the parts down. That way you know it's working right. Okay. Now we're going to put a little bit of oil in this here spinner cone right here in the hole there itself. And we're going to put the rubber washer back where it belongs, but we're going to have to glue that later on. I'm going to have to take the reel apart later to do that, but I showed you how to do it. You can put a little bit of glue on it, and that'll fix the problem. But just for time constraint, we're showing you how to service this reel and put it back together. And we'll put the spinner cone back on, and this reel should work like brand new. Put the handle back on her. Put a little drop of oil in each one of the handles knobs. And this reel will be like brand new. And if you find one of these at the flea market that's in really, really good shape, I recommend you to buy them, because they're good reels. They'll last you forever. Like I said, this reel's been sitting in the guy that bought's uncle's house for decades, not been used. But once you fix this up, this is like a brand new reel. We're going to put that nut in there like that, and we're going to tighten it up just a little bit. You don't want it too tight. Now at this point, the back plate needs to go on the back of the reel here. You see what I mean about that rubber washer coming out when you're using it? We're going to have to glue that later, but like I said, right now we're just going to put this reel back together, show you how to service it. And that little rubber washer is annoying as heck. You're going to have to glue that in there. But right now, we're going to just do this for time constraints. And put it back together. Put this part right back on it, like that, and twist it. And right here is the little set screw. You need either a nickel or a small nickel or a really good sized flathead screwdriver to tighten up that base plate. so it keeps the reel from opening up while you're fishing. Sometimes these screws can be stripped, and if they're stripped, it's because people had tightened them up a little bit too tight. You're not really supposed to tighten them all the way up. Once you get that done, any excess oil and grease on your hands that you once had, you can just wipe the excess off by taking a rag to it and just wiping it down. And looky, we got a brand new serviced reel. It's like brand new. I couldn't even turn this reel. There it goes. Oh, that's like brand new. That's like glass now. And anti-reverse is working really nice on a mid-70s Zebco 33 reel. How you can tell it's a mid-70s reel. It has one rivet. The older reels had two rivets. That's how you can tell it's the 70s reel. And usually the yellow writing and the 33 stamp on it. These go for about 20 bucks at any flea market. In a box, they go for like, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks. But you know, at a flea market, I wouldn't spend no more than 20 bucks on one. It's a really good reel. Hope you all like the service video on how to take it apart and put it back together, and some tips and tricks on fixing the brake, the little rubber spot on the brake on a late 1970s Zebco 33. If you like this video on the servicing of this old reel, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. This will also work on the this is also how you take apart the old 1960s reels and the 50s reels. So this is a template for that as well. This video will work for all generations of this style of reel, even into the 80s. This has been your old pal Hondo from Hillbilly Tactical. You put God first, he puts you first every time. Y'all know what you do. God loves you. So does Hondo. Peace out, YouTube.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even if it's